Okay. We need a ball today, just any sort of ball.
Okay.
Yes. I'm using a moon ball. We'll see how it holds up, but it's like a kind of a weird, bouncy, holy sort of funky thing.
Looks like a dog toy to me.
Almost, yeah. It's not sturdy enough to be a dog toy, but good morning, Diane.
Morning.
Did you get the news? We didn't need a ball for today?
Okay, one that bounces or a lacrosse ball?
Lacrosse ball would be fine.
Okay, got it, check.
Or whatever's nearby.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get moving here. We're going to start off with this ball on your feet. So, these stretch sessions, I don't know if you guys start with shoes on even. I guess it sort of depends on, like Dory's in the basement, so she's on probably cold concrete floor. So I see starting with shoes on there, but I would recommend for these stretch sessions just to go barefoot if you can. If it's not too uncomfortable for you, but we're going to start with just rolling your foot. And actually this ball, it's kind of one of those multi-dimensional kind of things that bounces pretty like a little funky. It's kind of nice because as you roll it under your foot, it's not smooth, it's more bumpy. So this is working out okay. But really we want to start just by rolling the bottom of your foot. And we can switch sides. You can always have something nearby to put your hand on if you need a little extra balance. But rolling up under your foot is a good way to kind of start to wake things up. And especially if you wear shoes a lot and, your foot doesn't get that much interest from walking on different surfaces or whatever it might be, this is a good way to sort of wake it up a little bit. So as you roll, we want to think about rolling like side to side right behind the ball of your foot, right? So all those bones that go across there, those toe joints, you're going to roll right behind the ball of your foot, right in front of your heel, and then see how far you can get. Sometimes if you have a ball that's too slick and you try to do your heel, it'll shoot out behind you. Okay, from there, we'll go ahead and take a spot on the floor. And we're just going to use this ball sort of like a more targeted version of a roll, right? So we're going to try to do all the same things with it. But from here, we can just do a little bit, like you can touch on some smaller areas, smaller spots, rather than making the big broad strokes, right? So here, I'm just taking this right up the middle of my calf muscle. And so you can move up, then you can move side to side a little bit. And you'll notice right away that this gives a little bit bigger zing than you would get from a regular roller. Most people can kind of stack their legs up on a foam roller and go to town. The other thing you can do here is, just use the ball. And so we'll go up the outside of your shin. And think about find that bone that runs right down the middle of your shin. And then just off the side of it, we're going to be pressing that ball into that muscly tissue there. So think about pulling the tissue away from your shin bone. And we can go up and down the outside also. This is also, if you have a tiger tail, you can do that. But again, if you think about the point of contact with a ball is going to be a much smaller area than like a big flat roller would be. All right, so let's switch to the other side, just taking care of everything below our knees. You can go side to side, you can go up and down. So we're going to kind of do your best to roll this ball on each part of your tissue there, outside, inside. So kind of turn your leg out a little bit. And then we'll take it with your hand, and you can either, if it's slippery, you can slide it up and down, but if it won't slide, you just roll up and down. And again, today the theme with the ball is going to be kind of like thinking about wedging the ball in between where the bone is and where the muscle is. Okay, so here on your shin is a really good example. If you find your shin bone and then you drop your thumb just to the outside of your shin bone, you know, you get that kind of space where the muscle and bone attach or run along each other. Okay, so if we can use the ball right in that spot, we're going to be sort of separating the tissue from the bone. And that's what we want to focus on today. Okay, same idea. Let's move up above your knee. You can just use the ball again. And just sort of like this muscle inside your knee, okay, really close to your knee, but just inside. You can use the ball to roll that. Should get a nice like relaxed feeling after you roll that. And if you just kind of follow the contour of that. All right, so we're just kind of just inside your knee there. All right, another spot that you'll get a lot of, you'll notice a lot of sensation from is like up the outside of your leg. You could also lay on the floor and do this, but I think for most, unless you have a really squishy ball, this is going to be too intense to do on the outside of your leg. So again, we're just going to roll around. And good, let's go to the other side. If it helps to bend your knee a little bit to tighten that muscle around your knee, you can do that. Right now, we're sort of on the inside top, I guess you would call it, of your knee. Without getting into like muscle names and stuff. Okay, and then we'll go to the outside. Just kind of rolling up the side of your leg. All the way up to your hip bone. And then we'll go back down the back side of your leg. So now I'm kind of outside, but behind my thigh bone. Okay, good. A little tougher to do, but let's put the ball behind your hamstring, so like the back of your thigh. It's a little tougher to do because sometimes it just doesn't work to get the right kind of weight on it, but at least if you can shift side to side and get a little something there. The closer you are to your knee, probably the more pressure you'll be able to put on. But as it gets closer to your hip, you kind of almost just have to sit on it. And let's repeat the process on the other side. So that ball's just back behind my thigh. And you can roll up and down, but I find that you get a little more action if you go side to side. Okay, and good. Here's the meat of what we're going to do today with the ball. All right, so two bones in your hips that we want to focus on. Number one are your sit bones, right? The ones that you're sitting on right now, right? The two bony parts that are on the floor. We're going to try to go around and kind of make the letter C around the outside of your butt bone. So we'll start in front, right? So the ball is on like the camera side of that bone, right? And then, so you just kind of take a little bit of weight off so that you can move. All right, so we're going to go back and forth. And right now you should be sort of pressing on like your hamstring tendon that comes up your leg and plugs into that butt bone. All right, and then from there, you're going to move just to the outside. Right, so now the ball is kind of on the outside of my butt bone. You should start to feel a lot of those hip muscles now. Right, and then I'm working that ball to the back of your butt bone. All right, is all this making sense? I know it makes sense in my head, but I want to make sure I'm communicating it well. So remember, we're just trying to separate muscle and bone here. So you're going to kind of make the letter C from under the bottom side of your butt bone around the outside to the top side of your butt bone. And once you get to your sacrum, that flat part, okay, that's where you'll stop. We're going to do a little work on that too, but for right now, you're just going to kind of go around the outside of that letter C. So it's almost like, this letter C is going to be here on this side. This letter C will be backwards on this side. So let's go to the other side. And again, you're just trying to separate muscle. Think about pushing the muscle away from that bone. You're literally just going right around the outside of your hip bone. And if holding, like having yourself up or holding yourself up becomes an issue, you can do this just by kind of sitting on it and then moving it with your hand and then sitting back on top of it, moving it with your hand, sitting back on top. So there's a way to do this without holding yourself up. Okay, so now let's go to, so there's like a flat triangle bone back here that kind of ends in your tailbone. All right, we're gonna go on either side of that. All right, so we'll go kind of up one side and then up the other side. So if you find that bone, right, so you're not gonna be right in the middle on your tailbone, but you're gonna roll off to the side. It should be kind of like on the edge of one cheek, the inside edge of one cheek. And you're just gonna work that ball up kind of that upside down triangle, right? So if your tailbone is here at the bottom, the bone is like a V, it goes out. So we want to be on the muscly side of that V, that's the outside of the V, and just pushing down into those tissues there. And let's go ahead and switch to the other side. The value of this, guys, is, you kind of wonder why do we do this? But the more you can move those tissues around, the fewer kind of, they call them adhesions and like stuff kind of gets stuck. And when your muscles get stuck and they don't slide over each other nicely, then that's when you start to get injuries or stress on those muscles that doesn't need to be there. All right, so we're just working our way up the outside of your sacrum. All right, one last thing we're going to focus on with the ball here. All right, so I mentioned two hip bones, one that you sit on, and then the other one here by your pocket, right? So that's kind of where your, like that's the outside of your femur, right? Where your leg plugs into your hip. Okay, so it's the one that, if you fall, that's usually the one you land on. Okay, so we're still going with that letter C, except right now, or this time, it's going to be from the back up and over to the front. So if you think about starting this right around your pocket, starting that ball right around your pocket, then you're going to work your way up and over. You should be below the crest of your hip, right? So the crest of my hip is way up here. I have long legs. So I'm going to work up and over my pocket or over that hip bone with the ball. And again, you don't have to necessarily pick yourself up and do this, but what you should feel is the ball kind of sunk into muscly tissue. This is where you're going to have probably the easiest time finding the muscles. And we'll just roll all the way down. Try to make a full circle around that hip bone. Keeping that ball nice and close to your hip bone. And the goal here is to push muscles away from your hip bone. So you can just let your weight sit on top of it or sit down on it. And good. Okay, let's go to the other side. So you can start either in front or behind. I'm going to start behind that hip bone. Working it up around sort of where my back pocket would be. Working up over top. The other way you can do this, if it's not your, you know, if like picking up and moving yourself around is more of a challenge than it's worth, we can just take the ball. You can also just lay on your side and kind of work it around where it needs to be or where you want to be. So you'll still get something out of that, but if you can put your body weight on it, that's usually better. Okay. Good. We'll leave the shoulders. We'll leave the shoulder rolling out for today. I want to do a little bit of stretching here, but we will start with a shoulder stretch. Okay, so just lying on your back, your feet flat, palms up towards the ceiling and arms straight. So we want to kind of work your way into getting those shoulder blades flush with the floor. Okay, so sometimes it helps to push your feet forward away from you so that it kind of pulls the tissue down your back, right? And then sometimes that helps to pull your shoulder blades into like flush with the floor. And from there, we're just going to do a floor angel. So you reach up. As you reach up, we're trying to keep your low back flush with the ground. You don't have to actively push it there, but we want to keep it nice and flat as we reach up. If you're not getting much of a stretch out of this, you can do this on top of your foam roller. So if you have a 3-foot foam roller at home, you'll just, you would put your butt at one end and your head at the other. That way you're a little bit elevated off the floor. All right, so from here, now we're reaching up. We're going to go floor slide. If any shoulder issues keep you from doing this, just do one side for now and keep the troubled shoulder in a pain-free spot. All right, so here, as you reach up, we want to think about those shoulder blades rotating. They're still going to stay flush with the floor. And then as you bring your elbows down, your shoulder blades will rotate down. Think of the bottom edges of your shoulder blades rotating in towards each other. And then we reach up, the bottom edges of your shoulder blade rotate out away from each other. And good, while we're here, let's curl up on the floor. Again, if you have a foam roller, you can prop your knee up on it. If you don't have a foam roller, just keep your knees stacked right on top. And then from here, we're just going to open up and stay. So again, we want our head to lead. Want your head to start the rotation. So that means we're going to be looking at your hand. If you have a pillow around, you can also prop your head up here if needed. We're just going to stay open. Check in, make sure your knees are stacked right on top of each other so that you're not pulling one back. Focus a little bit on breathing here. By the way, so if you have shoulder stuff here that keeps you from having your arm out, you just keep your hand on your rib cage and try to open your chest up towards the ceiling. So we take the shoulder out of it. It's still good to have the back stretch, the upper back rotation. All right, let's go ahead and switch to the other side. Focus a little bit on breathing here. So as you open up, as you take your breath, things are going to feel like they get tighter, okay, because the air is going into your lungs. It's probably moving you around a little bit. But then as you exhale, you should feel like you have a little bit more room. So each time you exhale, think about sinking down into that stretch a little bit more. A nice deep breath in through your nose. On the exhale, sort of ride that exhale down into the stretch. Again, checking back in, make sure knees are on top of each other, tailbone is tucked. You're staying open, try to keep your eyes on your hand, the hand that's open. And good. All right, let's come on up. We'll stop at this 90-90 position. This is just too good of a hip flexor stretch or a piriformis stretch to pass up. right? So this has become a staple for us too. We'll just go and we lean forward over your front leg. You notice we stretch and rotate the upper back, and then we stretch and turn the hips, right? So we kind of skip turning and stretching your low back most of the time. So our low back, while we should be able to move it around, there's not much rotation. There's really not much room to rotate or flex or extend in your lower back, like your lumbar spine. So we stretch the things around your lumbar spine so that kind of free up all of that movement. You don't have to do it because that's sometimes like that repeated flexing and bending of your low back is where people get into back trouble. So we stretch above and below. That way the low back doesn't have to do the movement itself. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. Okay, so taking your chest forward over that front leg. It is natural to have more pressure on your outside elbow, the elbow that's outside your body, but we're going to try to keep both pushed into the ground. You can kind of notice the same things with breath here. So as you take a deep breath in, you might feel that stretch tighten up. And then as you exhale, you'll notice the stretch loosen a little bit. You'll have a little bit more room. You try to ride that stretch down. And good. All right, let's come up to all fours. And from here, we're going to round up. So we're doing a little cat and cow. So we round up like a cat. Think about tucking your tailbone under and making that nice big arch from your tailbone all the way up and over. Every joint is flexed, including your head. You should be looking back between your knees. And then we're going to try to extend everything here. So now your tailbone starts to point up, and we're looking forward as well. So just hanging out here, it's almost the exact opposite. So we're looking to extend every joint. Now let's go back to that flex position, nice and easy. Tailbone tucked. The cat position. Think of a cat with its back arched up. Looking back between your knees. And then looking forward. Drop that belly button down towards the floor. Tailbone goes up. Think about your chest rising up, facing forward. And good, okay. So we're gonna bring one foot forward. All right, and I've really started to like this kind of Spider-Man hip flexor stretch. So if you have a foam roller, you can use that. I'm just gonna take hands to the floor because I don't have a foam roller. But what we want is a nice straight line. So right now my hips are too high, right? Because from my knee, it goes up to my hips and then a different angle to my low back. But what I want to do here is try to push my hips down towards the floor. It's a little hard to see with the darker background, but what we want is a straight line from your knee through your hips to your shoulders and ears. So I really should have, because my hands are low to the floor, I'm just gonna grab a couple couch cushions here, see if this can prop my upper body up. All right, so it's something, it's a little bit better, but now I've got a straighter line from my knee up through my ears. So push your chest up as much as you need to. We're also pushing your hips down to get in line. And good, let's go to the other side. So one knee comes up, and we put your hands right by your knee. So your shin should be vertical. All right, so now I'm pushing myself away, and we get that nice straight line on this side. But for me, the front of my hips, I know the front of my hips are tight. So my hands down on the floor means, you know, I'm not able to get my hips in line. So I do want to elevate my hands. If your hips are tight, you probably have to elevate your hands. Push into that hip flexor stretch. You'll also get a stretch up underneath your front leg. Okay, last thing left to stretch here this morning. You know what? I want to do a quad stretch too. So we'll be on the ground. And let's do our hamstring stretch first. So you can have a strap, but this is pretty much the most passive kind of hamstring stretch you can do. If you have a strap, you can throw that over the bottom of your foot, even a band. Okay, if not, we just interlock your fingers, push your heel up towards the ceiling, and then we pull that leg back. You can play around with moving your ankle, like pointing your toe, pulling your toes back towards you. See what that does to the stretch. Really, we're just going for a hamstring stretch here, stretching out the back of your leg. You'll get the stretch wherever you're tightest. So usually if you bring your toes back towards you, well, let's go ahead and switch sides. If you bring your toes back towards you, kind of lights up the stretch because all of that stuff, all of this stuff is attached to your heel. So when you pull your toes back, it pulls your heel up towards the ceiling and puts all of that stuff on stretch. So you'll feel that light up pretty quickly as soon as you pull your toe back toward you. Well, we just want to make sure our leg is straight. I actually get a lot of this stretch. If I'm pulling my toe back, I actually get most of it in my calf, but I'm also pretty flexible in my hamstring. So it really depends on who you are and where you need the stretch the most. Check in with your other leg. So you know, we don't want your other leg like bent and off to the side like this. We want to keep that leg straight out in front of you, back of your knee on the floor. And good. Okay, last stretch for this morning. You're going to grab your shoelaces. Okay, you can also use a band for this if you have a band. But we're pulling that heel back towards your butt. Try to get your knees to stack right up on top of each other. Right, so you can have your knee in front to grab your shoe if you need to, or the top of your foot. But then we're going to pull back, try to get your knees right over top of each other. And good, last thing, let's go to the other side. Last stretch. You're stretching out the quad on the other side. This is my second favorite quad stretch. Well, I'll take that back. This is my second favorite quad stretch that you can do on your own. First would be putting a band around your foot, like in pulling that band up over your shoulder and pulling your heel into your butt, right, using the band. But if you have no band, this is a decent second place. My number one favorite quad stretch, you need some trainer support with that one, and it involves like a physical therapy table or training table. So that we don't have access to, but just holding that stretch again, make your butt cheeks strong, so that you're driving that knee back right over top of your other knee. And good. Okay. Well, that's it. Anything else, guys? Anything else we want to address? Questions?
Good.
Okay. All good. All right. Nice job, guys. nice to get these Sundays in. I like doing these. I look forward to them. It's a good way to do the stuff we're supposed to be doing, but don't always take the time to do. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I see the sun coming out, so maybe you can get out and enjoy it. Just bundle up.
Yeah, for sure. It's cold.
All right. See you guys. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Brian.
You bet. See ya.
Bye.